Expectations are high here. Look, we're the fourth winningest franchise in the league since 2000. All right, that means in the upper quartile of winners, we're in the top quartile of that upper quartile. That's rare air. And we've earned being there. And what we've accomplished speaks for itself. I don't have to crunch numbers to say what we've accomplished. I don't know how to make sausage. I don't know what goes into sausage. But I do know how to build a football team because I've been around for 52 years.
Never changed, Jim Irsay.
Quartile. He's in the upper quartile of the upper quartile.
He's the kid in school who learned a new word. He knows how to pronounce it. He thinks he knows how to use it. So damn it, he's going to use it. He's getting his money's worth out of quartile. Quartile is the word of the day for Jim Irsay, and he doesn't know what goes in sausage. Guess what, Jim? Nobody knows what goes in sausage. And I think there was probably a saying that he had workshopped that he was planning to roll out then. It just didn't come out the way that he had hoped when it was time to speak extemporaneously. Some people have a very polished and inherent skill when it comes to talking without a script. Some people don't. Jim Irsay, don't. And every once in a while, we're treated to a gem like the thing we saw last night. And Chris, let's just start there. They pick 8 p.m. Eastern as the time for their press conference.
I mean, what the hell?
That was, well, it was the smartest thing they could have done.
They didn't
Put it
plan
up
that.
against the football game.
The upper quartile of management did not plan that. They did not. They did not. That was like, oh, wait, I got things to do. Let's just make it at 8 o'clock. I'm a billionaire. I got to do something else with the first quartile of my day. They're not that smart.
There it is. There's the banner. 2000 to 2022, the upper quartile of the top quartile of that upper quartile of winners.
Here's my other thing I want to question why we're just having fun with this for a second. If you were in the upper quartile of the upper quartile, wouldn't you be one of the top 2 teams in the last 20 years, right? Because it's the quartile.
I think you'd be the number 1 team.
Well, you'd be in at least the upper quartile.
Well, no,
you'd be
8,
1 or 2, right?
You'd be 1 or 2.
So he's
That's
really
right.
in the
upper quartile of the top quartile is the top 2.
Exactly. So he's in the upper half tile of the quartile. He's got to figure out how to say this better next time and sell this the right way.
Listen, that goes back to the Polian-driven stats that they would use to try to push themselves into the conversation with the Patriots. That thing that short-circuited in his brain last night with quartile, it all goes back to the hatred of the Patriots, the jealousy of the Patriots. You know, Irsay has said things like, well, the greatest team of all time has to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. Until you do that, you're not the greatest team of all time. And we're going to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. He would always throw that in for good measure.
Right.
So I remember when the Colts were in their heyday, we would always hear about regular season win percentage, right? And all the seasons with double-digit wins, all these, like the Aaron Rodgers stats that are impressive but have nothing to do with winning championships. That's the Aaron Rodgers model, and that comes from the Colts and Bill Polian. When they had to stick up their butts about the Patriots, they were jealous of the Patriots. They couldn't compete with the Patriots, so they had to come up with other ways to say we're just as good, if not better, than the Patriots. That's what that last night is a vestige of. And we're kind of far removed from the Colts having any opportunity to say with a straight face that they're in the upper quartile of anything by any measure. Right now, they're not. Right now, they're in the upper quartile of dysfunction. I'll say they're in the upper quartile of the upper quartile of the upper quartile of dysfunction in the NFL right now. I mean, and it goes back to, and Chris, I really, this is one of the times when I have full faith and credit in my pasta and meatballs instinct, because yesterday, and I wish I'd said it, I wish I'd tweeted it. Yesterday, I had a feeling some weird shit's going to go down today. I just had that feeling. And, I always strike that balance between you try to be responsible. I mean, I'm not reporting anything. I don't want to light a fuse and make it look like I know something that I don't. But I just had a feeling something was going to happen yesterday. And I kind of thought maybe Mark Davis was going to throw us a curveball and fire Josh McDaniels or something like that. But I just got a feeling something weird's going to happen today. And I never would have guessed well, I mean, Frank Reich getting fired, okay, fine, even though it was 8 days after, Jim Irsay saying rather emphatically, according to Mort, that Reich is safe, replacing him with a guy with no college or pro coaching experience. I never would have had that on the bingo card. But next time I have that feeling, I am going to embrace it because I had a feeling something weird was going to happen yesterday, and something weird did happen yesterday. Reich is out, and Jeff Saturday hasn't played in a decade and has never coached at the college or pro level, is the interim coach. And the way that Irsay was talking last night, he's rooting for this guy to earn the full-time permanent job.
I don't even know where to start here. All right, so first off, so next time you have a gut feeling crazy stuff's going to happen, you're going to write an article and write, I got a gut feeling crazy shit's going to happen.
I don't know how to communicate it. I'm not going to keep it to myself.
I'm just having
fun.
fun.
I'm not going to keep it to myself.
Right,
I know,
gotcha.
but I should have at least texted I should have at least planted the flag so someone knew that I had a strong feeling
that pasta and meatballs is working strong today.
I need to, next time, at a minimum, I'm going to do that. So I have receipts. I have no receipts.
All right. Let's just start here. Let's unpack this a little bit. It's insane, all of it. I mean, classify under WTF on a Monday afternoon. Like what? First off, let me ask you this: Frank Reich. Do you think he deserved to be fired? All right, that's where I want to go. I'll state my answer for a second. I was a little shocked. I mean, I'm not shocked because I know the current status of the NFL and the world we live in, right? But at the same time, I don't know. Damn. I mean, there's been a lot of good there in Indianapolis with Frank Reich. All right, first year, 10-6. I mean, go into Kansas City in the playoff game. We're there on NBC. A lot of reasonable football minds in the world were going, the Colts are one of the hottest teams of football. They're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs today. All right, they lose to the Chiefs. Boo, 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 in the snow and sleet. Next year, what happens? Oh, Andrew Luck, the guy the reason we're all there and we wanted the job, he leaves. All right, they're still in the thick of things with Jacoby Brissett. Now it's 2020. COVID comes. They got Phillip Rivers. They go 11-5. With a guy who can't throw the ball 25 yards down the field and have Buffalo Bills on the ropes in the wild card playoff game. And it isn't for Josh Allen making 2 or 3, of the most remarkable, only him or Mahomes make type of plays. They're going to win that game and upset them. And then there's last year with Carson Wentz, where again, I don't know how much to fault Frank Reich for the quarterback situations and all of that, but I don't think he deserves all the blame. And Carson Wentz, of course, they were in it to the very end last year. So that's where I want to defend Frank Reich just a hair here, to where I go, I am surprised they fired him at this point. I don't know, Mike. Just let's start there. What are your thoughts on that first off?
Well, I think, and they're not going to tell us candidly the thought process. Jim Irsay said enough last night, and I may need to parse through his words and write something about this at PFT, but I think this is something that Irsay's wanted to do for a long time. And I'm going to go back. I won't go any farther back than the end of last season, when all the Colts have to do is go to Jacksonville and beat a horrible team to get into the postseason, to cap off a year in which Carson Wentz, the guy that Frank Reich handpicked, the guy for whom Reich vouched, had been a disaster. And so they blow that game. Irsay blows a gasket. And I suspect that Irsay said to Chris Ballard after that game, I want to fire Frank Reich and hire Jeff Saturday. And Chris Ballard talked him out of it. If I had to guess when this started, that would be, to me, when Irsay wanted to do it. Ballard talked him out of it. Let's give Frank another chance. Frank's the right man for the job. Frank saved our asses after we were left at the altar by Josh McDaniels. Frank came in and took over this job. We didn't even consider him. And look at what he's done, especially with Andrew Luck walking away in his prime.
Right.
Look at what Frank Reich has done for this team to keep it from becoming completely and totally dysfunctional.
Yep.
We owe it to Frank Reich to let him to try to turn this around. So then they get Matt Ryan, and everything Super Bowl again. I'm sure at some point in the past 6 months, Jim Irsay has blustered about the possibility that the Colts will win the Super Bowl this year with Matt Ryan and Frank Reich. And I think it just got to a point where Irsay, and this goes back to And really, look, Irsay was everybody's hero when he said what needed to be said about Dan Snyder. But then Matt Ryan gets benched. That was a business move. That wasn't a Frank Reich move. That was Irsay saying, I don't want to be at risk of owing this guy $17 million next year if he gets injured
100%.
and he can't pass a physical by March. I'm done with Matt Ryan. So he goes first. Then Marcus Brady, the offensive coordinator, goes next. And then Reich goes. And I just think Chris Ballard, who did a great job of keeping a straight face most of the press conference, I think Chris Ballard kept Irsay from doing this Reich for Saturday swap as long as he possibly could. And yesterday was the day that the dam broke. That's my guess based upon analyzing the events, the circumstances, and the things Irsay said last night.
I don't know if I totally disagree with you there. I wouldn't be shocked if you're right on your pasta and meatballs are along the same lines there. We heard some of those rumors. I think we thought maybe some of that at the end of last season was Frank Reich in trouble because of the Carson Wentz issue. Some stuff like that. And then this can't just totally come out of left field. Jeff Saturday obviously has to be in the ear of Jim Irsay to a degree, or there's a relationship there where they're talking football enough to where it's valued and he's on the radar that way. I mean, I didn't really realize he was a consultant until yesterday either. So there was a little bit more of a relationship than I thought. But Mike, I don't totally disagree with your thought right there. I guess I'm still shocked that it happened at this time. And then, I mean, the shocker of all shockers. I mean, forget Frank Reich being fired. I mean, it just is like, what? I don't care what business you're in. And I got respect for Jeff Saturday, and I know what he is, the player, everything. I watch every ex-teammate, he's a leader of men and all of that. But damn, I mean, just to come out of left field and now you're going to be the head coach of a football team that's got John Fox, who's been to multiple Super Bowls as a head coach, and Gus Bradley's on the staff, who's been an ex-head coach and is one of the best defensive minds in football. That's where it's weird. It's weird throughout. It's weird about how's he going to, infuse himself into the coaching conversation. How are the players going to look at him and go, wait, you haven't led a high school team as a head coach, and now you're talking to us about.
He did.
Oh, he did the high school team.
He coached high school.
He coached high school. I didn't know it was the head coach.
I think 1 year the record was 3-6, though. I don't know if he was. I got to do a deep dive on his high school coaching experience.
Gotcha.
But my son was telling me last night that 1 year that the team was 3-6. So which fits because the Colts are 3-5-1. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Because I got some thoughts about this as well. Because I don't blame Jeff Saturday for saying yes.
Of course not.
How do you
say no?
It?
Sure.
I blame those who decided to give Jeff Saturday the opportunity. Let's hear from Jim Irsay on Jeff Saturday's lack of experience and also Saturday on getting that phone call from Jim Irsay, giving him the opportunity to take over the team. Here it is.
I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience. I'm glad he hasn't learned the fear that's in this league. That's because it's tough for all our coaches. They're afraid. They go to analytics, and it gets difficult. I mean, he doesn't have all that. He doesn't have that fear, and there was no other candidate. We were fortunate that he was available, and he has tons of experience. He knows this game inside and out with relationships with coaches and players. And has been a consultant for us for several years.
Yeah, shocked would be an understatement, right? Shocked would be an understatement. So, we had the conversation, and it escalated quickly.
Oh, I would say it did. Now, look, there's going to be some suspicion as to how long this was in the works because it was just 8 days before they pulled the switcheroo that Irsay was saying rather emphatically that he's behind Frank Reich. So is this something Irsay just dreamed up in the last week? Again, I think it's been simmering, and it went to full boil after they got completely outclassed and embarrassed by who, Chris?
Yeah, the Patriots. Destroyed, right.
That was the worst possible time for Frank Reich to get his ass kicked by the team that Jim Irsay resents and envies more than any other in all of sports. The team that has been the top quartile of the upper quartile of the top quartile of the quartile of the NFL for the past 20 years. Now, that first comment he made about, I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience because our coaches are scared because they get scared by analytics. Hey, Jim, good luck getting anyone to interview for the job after this year. Good luck with that. When you basically say all the coaches with NFL experience stink. They're afraid. They're driven by analytics. I mean, the ones who are driven by analytics are driven by analytics because the owner wants it, not because the coaches want to do it. The coaches don't want to do it. The coaches want to do it the old school way, and they have it forced upon them by some Ivy League 25-year-old kid whispering in his ear what he needs to do, and if he doesn't listen to him, he's got to answer to the owner. So Irsay's got it all wrong. He's just got it all turned upside down. That comment made no sense. That's how someone who has no idea how to persuade an objective outsider of his way of thinking desperately puts words together in the hopes that someone will see the light. There's no light to be seen. It was an asinine comment, and Chris, I'm going to say it, it's a prime example of why fan bases rightfully should be up in arms when you have an owner who is unfit to own an NFL team. Because this is a public trust with millions of local dollars getting pumped into the stadium, pumped into the team, and you have a guy who has no idea what he's doing. And I'm sorry, Jim, I don't care how many years you've been around the NFL, you don't know what you're doing.
Well, this is crazy. I mean, there's no doubt. It's absolutely crazy. And I don't know what the hell he was talking about with analytics either. You know, I you know me, I kind of liked it. I was like, wow, I mean, is he saying he wants a coach to stop worrying about the damn analytics? I was like, great. And I was also going like, well, wait, is that part of this problem here? Why he didn't like Frank Reich? Was Frank Reich, when they were having conversations, always going back to analytics and, oh, the numbers say do this and do that? Which, you know, again, the numbers are a part of the equation, but I think there's coaches in football that are way too reliant on that. But that doesn't really...
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
But Chris, the numbers are the things that get coaches to do aggressive things. That's where it makes no sense.
No, it makes no sense.
They're
exactly
relying
right.
on analytics, and they're afraid.
They're not scared.
The analytics have opened up this idea of going for it on fourth down.
Right. We make fun of it. Aggressive.
Yes.
Hey, it was stupid, but it was aggressive. So, hey, we won't write an article the next day following up and going how stupid it was because the coach said it was aggressive, and we're good with aggressive here in America now. As long as you're aggressive, then it doesn't matter. And that is what's going on in football. And we're seeing, again, a lot of teams in football who have gone the opposite approach of that this year and are winning games and are way at a spot, you know, farther down the road than we expected. The Giants and some other teams like that who are not always going for it on fourth down and stuff like that, managing games. But, Mike, I know it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Now, as dumb as all this is or as crazy it all is, I mean, he's still been a very good owner. They've done a lot of good things. But I don't understand this at all. I don't. And
they've done a lot of good things despite him. I mean, come on, we have to be real about this. If he's going to stand up and be real about Dan Snyder and say what needs to be said, and I applaud Jim Irsay for having the guts to do it. And it's amazing how quickly he's gone from, in my mind, a guy who should be championed to a guy who should be lampooned.
Well,
but
okay.
We're gonna apply. I'm telling you. Hey,
it can't
I'm
all be
amazed
bad.
in hindsight. Look, the best thing an owner can do is get the hell out of the way. And maybe during the Bill Polian and Tony Dungy years, he got the hell out of the way. The problem is he's getting in the way now. That's the point.
Seem that way.
I don't care what you've done in the past. I'm judging you based on what you're doing right now, right? It's not what have you done for me lately. It's not what you do for me the last 20 years. It's what are you doing for me right now? And right now, I see a guy who is unfit to own and operate an NFL team, and he needs to get out of the way after he makes a good hire. But now he's gotten in the way, and he's made a hire. And look, I know Chris Ballard is on board with this, and I got a ton of respect for him. I have a feeling he wouldn't have made this move if this decision was his and his alone.
I can't imagine that he would.
He's at a certain point, you just got to go along. You accepted the job with Jim Irsay. You knew there was a chance things were going to get a little nutty at some point, and they got a lot nutty yesterday.
I mean, beyond nutty. We've never seen this in the history of football. I mean, gosh, I hope it works. It's great. It's great because, you know, maybe somewhere down the line, if it does work, you know, I'll have a chance and go, you know what, I'm done with PFD. Some crazy owner wants to hire me as a head coach. I'm out of here.
And hey, and you won't say no to it because why would you? The problem is, and this gets back to the question of people getting jobs when they're not qualified for those jobs. And this goes back 20 years. Matt Millen, completely unqualified to get the keys to the Detroit Lions, and it showed. John Elway, completely unqualified to get the keys to the Denver Broncos. They lucked into Peyton Manning, and they won a Super Bowl. But then after Manning, what happened? It went down the commode. You've got John Lynch, who doesn't really have the keys to the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan couldn't hire somebody from another team because you can't hire somebody who's under contract with another team to be the GM if that person doesn't really run the show, and Kyle runs the show, so he kind of had to hire John Lynch. But still, it's there's been some questions about some of the decisions made by the 49ers from a personnel standpoint, but a guy who did not go through the motions, work the jobs, earn his stripes, prove that he's qualified. We've seen it. We've seen it multiple times. And then the Josh McCown stuff in Houston. They were flirting with doing the Jeff Saturday thing with Josh McCown. Oh, and Jack Easterby, who just got fired a few weeks ago by the Texans, who was completely unqualified to be the VP of football operations. And this is the thing that regardless of whether you're a minority candidate or you're white, if you're qualified, if you're among the vast pool of qualified candidates, you should be pissed when someone who lacks the objective qualifications is given an opportunity that you have busted your ass for years to earn. These folks have earned it. What's Jeff Saturday done? He's been on ESPN, and he was coaching a high school team. He has not put in the time to earn it, and it makes it harder for you to have the credibility when you walk into the locker room as the head coach because everyone in there knows you haven't earned it, and that's what he's got to overcome. And again, I don't fault him for saying no, but he's dragging this ball and chain around because he did nothing to earn it. He played, but thousands of guys play. There's a difference between playing and coaching, and he's done nothing at the college or pro level. No coaching experience. Chris, he's the first one since the Minnesota Vikings, an expansion team in 1961, hired Norm Van Brocklin, who had been the NFL's MVP in 1960 as quarterback of the Eagles. The Vikings hired him that next year. 60, he's playing. 61, he's coaching the Vikings. That's the last time it's happened. And, of course, it's not going to get the kind of scrutiny that this would because the world has completely changed in 62 years. But it's just amazing to me. This is on par with Jerry Jones buying the Cowboys and saying, I'm going to make myself the GM. That's as crazy as it is.
I mean, this might be crazier. I don't know. But you're right. This is the challenges they're gonna have to overcome here. And I don't know where it goes. You're right. I mean, you talk about the respect in the locker room. Again, getting in front of the coaching staff and starting to delegate responsibilities and, hey, this is what we're going to do at practice today, and, hey, this is where I think we should go with the game plan this week and all of that. It just seems all out of left field. You're right. I mean, not to say that
this
Jeff
is Ted Lasso shit.
Well,
it
is.
One of the reasons I've never really gotten into Ted Lasso is the premise is so absolutely ridiculous. I can't suspend disbelief to accept it long enough to even watch it. And I'm sorry, I know you're required to love Ted Lasso. Emmy is and all this. I can't get into it because I can't accept the idea that a Premier League soccer club would hire a mid-level and college coach to come. It's like that makes no sense. This is almost in that same category, Chris.
It totally is. It really is. And I know again, this is like the best reality TV we can get into here, and we'll see where it goes. But shocker is to say like that's the understatement of the day. I am totally out of left field. Craziness. Absolute craziness. And not to say that this guy can't be a head coach or doesn't have it in him, but I think to your point, it's usually like, hey, get in the building and be an assistant a little, get to see how the donuts are made. And then, hey, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, okay, that's time to do this. But I mean, this is just totally starting from scratch, and not only starting from scratch, but in a team right now that's got to be, scratching their head a little bit, not only about the coaching decisions, but also just like, man, where are we going as a football team here? It seems like we're slowly falling apart. And now we got a guy here that's never really been a part of us, doesn't know us, and he's going to lead us out of the darkness? That's where, like, none of that makes sense. And football's got a lot of that military background and command system and all that, and this totally throws all of that, out of whack completely.
One of the things that Chris Ballard, the GM of the team, said yesterday that caught my ear.
Yeah.
Was that they had tried a couple of times to get Jeff Saturday to join the coaching staff. They tried in 2019 to get him to be the offensive line coach. They tried again this year. The whole idea of after the loss to the Jaguars, I want to fire Frank Reich. I want to hire Jeff Saturday. Well, Jim, that probably would be a little unconventional. Why don't we try to get him on the coaching staff first, and then let's get him some. Let's make it easier on him if you ever do make him the head coach. Let's get him some experience. Let's give him a chance to say, hey, I've been in the building. I've been coaching these guys. I've learned the ropes that way. Let's just not thrust him into the head coaching job. That's the easy argument. Back to Jim Irsay. You can't put this guy, if you love this guy and respect this guy and believe he can be a great coach, you can't put him in the situation where he's walking through the door with no experience whatsoever. We need to get him to come be the coach of the offensive line for a while, and then we can make him the head coach. But Saturday rejected it. See, he had an opportunity. If he wanted to get on this treadmill, get on this path, work his way toward being a head coach, he would have done himself a hell of a huge favor by joining the effort at a level lower than head coach. Then it's easier to sell to guys like us. And the average fan is like, what the hell's going on? Everybody's saying, what the hell's going on? They would have been wise to not hire him unless he was willing to come in and be kind of an apprentice, be an assistant coach, learn the ropes that way. It makes it easier for everyone to accept when you make him the top guy.
Yeah, definitely, no question. I mean, this is crazy. It is, and I guess the one thing, I haven't watched this full press conference yet because, of course, it happened at 8:00, like you talked about, and I kind of just watched the highlights of it right after the game last night. So I want to watch the full thing, but it does get the sense of watching what I have seen, what I've heard over the last year or so, maybe connecting a few dots from things I've heard from other people in football too, where it's like, and of course what happened yesterday, like Irsay's just sick of Frank Reich. Maybe he doesn't want anything to do with anything on that coaching staff or any influence of Frank Reich with those type of guys that he's brought in or whatever. That's where it all seems odd. It does. And I don't know how much he got influenced in the firing of Marcus Brady last week, but it all just seems like that's been festering, to your point about the end of last year and some of those conversations. There's definitely some of that, I think, on a lot of people's radars across the NFL.
When Jim Irsay said what he said about Daniel Snyder last month, when the owners gathered for a quarterly, not quartile, but quarterly meeting in New York, the thinking was Irsay is trying to fashion a different legacy for himself, and that's why he did what he did. And to the extent that he is thinking about legacy, and at some point we all hopefully live long enough that we can think about our legacy, the team is part of it too. He's talked big. He's boasted regularly and repeatedly about how great the team is going to be and all the Super Bowl wins they're going to have. They got one in all of his time as owner of the team. Now, I think the Colts won it in Baltimore pre-swap.
Right.
One of the great stories. Carol Rosenblum owned the Colts. Robert Irsay owned the Rams, and they just traded franchises.
Right.
Straight up traded franchises. I think that may have been post, but I have to look that up. But
I'm pretty sure it was.
One with Jim Irsay as in charge.
Right.
And they've had it. Look, should they have won more? I mean, you look at the Packers the last 30 years. They should have won more. The Colts should have won more. But he may be thinking about his legacy here. And he may be injecting himself into these decisions and expressing greater urgency and making greater demands. And again, there's a subtlety that you're allowed to have as a billionaire. You don't have to make direct orders. People who want to continue working for you will figure it out. I think Jim Irsay has shifted into, I'm going to start giving orders. I'm going to start putting the ingredients into the meat grinder to make the sausage, even though I have no idea what goes into it. I think that, Chris, is what's going on here. He's thinking about his legacy, and he's feeling desperate based upon what's happened the past few years.
I don't disagree with that thought. We talk about that. We talk about owners as they get older. I mean, I think you're saying the right things. They start to think about their legacy and how many more years do I have here to have a chance to win the Super Bowl, get Super Bowl. I want more of them. So maybe that is leading to the rash decisions, but. Yeah, this is like the craziest thing we've ever seen. And I'm like now can't wait to see the Colts and what happens on Sunday and what they look like and what's their approach and what's Jeff Saturday look like on the sideline and what's he going to do the first time he's got a real situational football and he's got to deal with it. He hasn't even thought about some of these things. He hasn't even practiced some of them. Like, wait, it's 3rd and 3. There's nothing. He's had no chance to go through some of these things in his mind to prepare for this moment. And that's where I just can't imagine it going all that smoothly. You know, as much as I respect the guy, this is a lot to handle and a lot to deal with. And we'll see where it goes. But that's the craziest move of the year so far, by far.
It's the craziest in-season move that I can remember, and that's not hyperbole. This is the nuttiest thing that any team has done in season that I can ever recall.
I think you're right.
Maybe there's something else that I've forgotten, but holy crap, to do this. Sometimes it's circumstances that arise, like the Gruden stuff last year. That wasn't a decision made by the Raiders. That just happened, and you had to deal with it. I'm talking about unforced error. We're going to do this during football season. Unbelievable. And, Chris, here's the other wrinkle to it. They don't know who's calling the plays.
I know, Mike.
Fairly important job function. When we have the ball, who is deciding, do we run, do we pass, and which play are we actually going to deploy from the playbook that Frank Reich created? It's unbelievable. And Jeff Saturday said at the press conference, it started at 8 Eastern last night, he's going to make the decision tonight. There's still nothing yet about what the decision is. But, Chris, what do you do on – okay, they play the Raiders on Sunday.
Josh McDaniels, ex-Patriots coach, by the way.
Yeah, well, and the guy who –
yeah, I know.
Who was the Colts coach until he wasn't.
Right.
What would a coaching staff normally be doing on a Tuesday?
It's full. It's all they're doing is breaking down the team that they're going to play this, coming week. It's all about that, and then starting to formulate the first and second down game plan of the week. What are we going to do? What are the runs we like? What are the passes we like? What are we going to infuse in the play action pass to put it all together, right? What are some of the checks and packages we're going to put together for the first and second down, game plan of the week? It's all that it is. It is truly a breaking down meetings, conversations. We're going to attack this. Wait, we're not good at this. They're good at that. We can't do these formations because of that, so we have to limit that this week. All of those things to where definitely behind the 8 ball. And then, there's no Frank Reich, the guy who's the end-all, say-all, be-all offensive coordinator, especially with Marcus Bradley being out of there. So that's where, I don't know who this falls on. I don't know if it ends up going to another, like Kevin Mawai. He's on the staff as an assistant offensive line coach. Maybe he gets involved here. The quarterback coach. But they're limited.
Is the quarterback coach.
Right. So that'd be one guy I would think is, going to be in the running, probably the top candidate to call the plays this week.
These are things that you can't be figuring out 5 days before a game.
No.
Think about it. Under normal circumstances, when we are trying to identify the teams that may fire a coach, and we know they have somebody on staff that would be a clear candidate to be the interim head coach, we say, well, that's something you want to try to do at a bye week so you have time to make the adjustment, or at a minimum coming off of a Thursday game so you have time. They're going Sunday to Sunday. They make the firing on Monday. They introduced Jeff Saturday Monday night at 8 Eastern. He's been running ragged all day long. Now he's got to figure out who's going to call plays. And now they've got to get the coaches on the same page and figure out what the hell they're going to do by way of game planning, detailed and specific game planning for the Raiders. And then they got to roll it all out in practice on Wednesday when the players come in. And along the way, he's got to meet with the players and make sure that they're comfortable with what has happened. You're going to have guys who are pissed. You're going to have guys who are at a minimum given the side eye to this entire situation. And you got a game on Sunday. And Chris, one more thing. We're going to see them 3 times this year in standalone games. We're going to see them twice on Monday Night Football, and they are scheduled Week 13 to play the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Now, some might say the league could decide to flex that game, but it's the Cowboys. You don't flex out of the Cowboys when the Cowboys are good. Rule of thumb. You could put any team out there. and it's going to be Sunday Night Football, America's team. So we're going to see them Week 12 Monday Night Football against the Steelers, Week 13 Sunday Night Football at the Cowboys, Week 16 Chargers, Monday Night Football, non-flexible. So we're going to get to see this experiment in real time 3 different times over the second half of the season.
Oh, that's great. I'm all for it. I mean, to me, it's like, don't move it now. If Frank Reich and company were there, I'd go, let's move it. But now, as Jeff Saturday, I want to see it for, firsthand. So this will kind of be fun, even though they're not deserving to be in some of those, spotlight games like that. But, geez. Yes, I'm all in it. I want to see it. I wanted to see the decisions made. But yeah, that Raiders-Colts game this week now got very interesting because of this situation.
And look, it's a balance we strike. And I'm not going to measure my comments. I'm not going to hedge my bets in the event that Jeff Saturday ends up being Vince Lombardi. We see that all too often when college coaches come to the NFL. You'll see people who are like, oh, this guy's going to be great. Because what's the harm in saying that? Hey, we're positive here. Go coach. Because if he's good and you've said all the nice things about him, he's more likely to take your phone call. Screw that. Okay? This is a mess. This is an embarrassment to the Shield. This should not be happening. It's an affront to all the folks out there who have been busting their asses to get real credentials and real qualifications. That's the problem. Now, I'm not saying I'm rooting against Jeff Saturday, but it shouldn't have happened. And I'm not going to back off from that just because Jeff Saturday may be upset with me and I may not be able to interview him at some point. I don't care about that. I care about speaking the truth, and the truth is this should not have happened. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.